Okay, so this video is about anaerobic respiration. You should really also watch the breakdown of lactate video, as that is kind of linked to this. So anaerobic respiration, literally respiration with no oxygen. And this is important. There are some organisms that can only respire without oxygen. But there are lots of organisms that can respire with both oxygen and without oxygen, like ourselves. And the ability to be able to respire, albeit for a short period of time without oxygen, is very important. So let's have a look in more detail at this. So there are different mechanisms for anaerobic respiration in plants and in animals, and we exploit both of them. So if we start off with animals, this is the equation. So glucose goes to lactate and a small amount of ATP. Now, lactate, which is sometimes just called lactic acid, it's the same thing, is what, if you are sprinting and then your muscles start to burn, that feeling is the feeling caused by lactic acid. So we can only respire anaerobically for a relatively short period of time because the lactic acid starts to build up in our muscles, and it actually sort of almost becomes poisonous. It causes cramping and a lot of pain. So why do we have this mechanism? Well, what it allows us to do is it allows us to cross what's called the aerobic threshold. So you'll be running along and you will reach a level by which your body can't keep providing oxygen at a fast enough rate to your muscles. So you'll reach a point where your output, your oxygen requirement is higher than your breathing rate and your heart rate can provide oxygen to your muscles for. And at that point, your muscles will flick into an anaerobic capacity. And it's short-lived, but it allows for a huge amount of power. So the sorts of activities that utilize anaerobic respiration are things like like a sprint finish to a race, weightlifting, that sort of thing. What it does do is it creates what we call the oxygen debt. So basically what you're doing is you're borrowing against oxygen by respiring anaerobically, and once you have finished your anaerobic respiration, then you need a period of cooling down to allow oxygen to replenish your muscles and break down the lactic acid. In plants and in fungi, particularly in yeast, the pathway that they follow is perhaps particularly exciting for us because glucose gets turned to ethanol and carbon dioxide. And we utilise this in fermentation processes to make beer and wine and really anything that's alcoholic. And we utilise the carbon dioxide when we're making bread. So as the bread is rising, the dough rises because little bubbles of carbon dioxide are trapped in it, and that's what makes the little holes when you cut open a loaf of bread. Obviously, some fermentation products like beer use both the ethanol and the carbon dioxide, so the carbon dioxide is what's making the beer fizzy. You need to know both of those pathways. You need to know that glucose goes to lactate in animals, and that glucose goes to ethanol and carbon dioxide in plants and fungi. And you need to know some uses, so things like beer and wine and bread.